When it comes to usage, some of the rules that get taught are probably just designed to make the teacher's life easier. And to be fair, writing teachers are a hardworking bunch, so who could blame them? However, nearly every writing rule hides a more complex reality, and that's something we can see really clearly with the common decree to keep the words you and I out of your writing. There are genuine reasons why these two words might have attracted the English teacher's enduring disdain. They do show up in pretty clumsy writing all the time. But that's not to say that they're always bad, and you can actually do some worthwhile things with them in your writing. So let's take a look at why you and I can get writers into so much trouble, and then talk about how to use them better. You might be the worst offender of the two because it shows up in our speech all the time. You know, when you aren't really talking about anyone particular, but you go around saying you as a stand-in for whoever. Maybe it shows up in a sentence like, anytime you build a treehouse, you're going to want to bring some olives for lunch. This kind of you attracts all kinds of bad attention for a couple reasons. The first is that it isn't really meant to address the reader, which is what you normally does. So it makes the reader think you're talking to them, but then they say, I've never built a treehouse and I hate olives, so what's going on here? So the problem with this kind of you is that it doesn't actually mean you at all, and it's usually a good idea to use words that mean what you mean. The other problem with this kind of you, really it's another symptom of the same problem, is that not only does it not refer to the reader, but it doesn't refer to anyone in particular at all. And it's usually a good idea to get more specific in your writing so that your readers know what you're talking about. So instead of writing, I think you should never say no to ice cream, you could write, I think it's foolish to say no to ice cream, or I think people on the beach should never say no to ice cream. In either case, we fixed the problem of you being used as a generic stand-in for any old whoever, and chosen instead to use words that more specifically mean what we mean to say. Now on to I. One of the great problems with using I in writing is that it often shows up in sort of unnecessary ways. So, for example, you don't need to write, I believe that ice cream is important, because we already know you believe it. You're saying it. Ice cream is important does the same job, and it does it with a little more force. When you say, I believe that ice cream is important, you might as well go on to say, but that's just my opinion, so whatever. Similarly, when you say things like, I think that, or I feel that, or I would say that, you're not only introducing unnecessary words that are already implicit in the fact that you're writing, but you're undermining the strength of your position by presenting it as just your own thoughts instead of something your audience should really pay attention to. And that's the opposite of what you want. So that's why teachers are likely to say you should never use you or I. They probably get so tired of seeing these clumsy uses of you or I that they just ban the words altogether. If you don't use them at all, you can't use them right, but you also never use them wrong. Maybe that's a worthwhile sacrifice early on, but we can handle more sophisticated rules now. Really, there's nothing inherently wrong with using you or I in writing, as long as you really mean to use them. It's maybe not often that you'll have a need to address your audience directly, but if the situation calls for it, there's no reason not to use you. You can be a good way to build a sense of intimacy with the reader, or to make a call to action more forceful. It calls on the reader directly, which can be a useful strategy. Just be aware that you puts your audience a little bit on the spot, and if what you're saying doesn't actually apply to your reader, you might put your reader on the defensive and cause more trouble than it's worth. I, in turn, can show up more easily and in more places so long as you avoid the redundant cases we've already discussed. It's also worth knowing that I is less common in certain kinds of writing, like science writing, where writers want to appear as objectively invisible as possible. So a scientist might opt for 15 milligrams of sodium chloride was dissolved into the water, instead of I dissolved 15 milligrams of sodium chloride into the water. In other disciplines like the humanities, I is a lot more common, so there's no real reason not to say I collected 14 poems and recorded every reference to flowers, because you did in fact do that, and it's normal to expect that a human would be doing it. Really, you and I are words that make the relationship between you and your readers explicit, calling attention to the fact that you and they are actual human beings. And I'm generally in favor of emphasizing the human interactions inherent in writing. I don't see much reason to pretend we're all ideas robots that only transmit pure information to each other, so why not infuse a little human warmth into the things that we write? But there are some situations where you don't want to put that human reality front and center. Science writing is the classic example, but more formal writing situations are also times when you might want to ease up on you and I. If you haven't earned a more familiar relationship with your reader, it can seem a little presumptuous to address them so directly. In the end, though, it isn't fair to say that you should never use these two words. If you really mean to address your reader directly or draw attention to your own human self, then they're the best tools for that job. Banning them outright is really an overreaction to the clumsiest ways of using them. And now that you know how they can go wrong and what they're actually good for, you can be more thoughtful about including them in your writing. And I wish you the very best as you put them to good use.